Good evening, class. Okay, today we're going to continue what we've been talking about in class with solving one-step equations. And instead of solving simple equations that involve just addition and subtraction, like we've been doing, lesson 2.6, we're going to go ahead and we're going to solve equations that now have both multiplication and division in them. Okay, and the multiplying equations, like we saw quickly in class, are going to be solved still doing the opposite. So the opposite of multiplying will be dividing, and the division problems will be solved by multiplying. And we're going to kind of walk you through a couple examples and give you a chance to really practice here. So let's get right into it. The same principles that apply for adding and subtracting are going to apply for these. So when we are solving, that's the key word, when we are solving equations, we're going to remember the idea of opposites. That is, if we're trying to get rid of plus, we're going to use minus. If we're trying to get rid of minus, we're going to use plus. Also, opposites, now we're going to introduce the idea that multiplication and division are opposites of each other. So if you want to get rid of one, use the other. Okay? And then remember balance, which means basically do things to both sides of the equal sign, both sides of the equation. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into this, and let's take a look at a couple of problems. Okay, so first off, I have 6x is equal to 72. Okay, so this really means, you can't really see it, but in between the 6 and the x, there's a dot there. It means 6 times x. So to get x by itself, to undo times 6, the opposite is to divide by 6. Well, if I divide one side by 6, I have to divide the other side by 6. Over here, multiplying and dividing by 6 is just going to give me x. And over on the right, 72 divided by 6, take your time on this one, it's going to equal 12. And sure enough, if I put 12 back in for x, it will check. Okay, let's continue on. Let's try another one of these. Suppose we have x divided by 14 equals 3. All right, now we're actually doing a problem where we're starting with division. So again, this idea of opposites, the opposite of dividing is to multiply. And the way we're going to show multiplication, since we're going to do it on both sides, is we're going to actually draw parentheses around both sides. And on the left, since I'm dividing by 14, the opposite of that will be to multiply by 14. On the right, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to multiply by 14. Now, on the left, dividing and multiplying by the same number is basically just going to cancel out, giving me 1, and 1 times x is just plain old x. And on the right, I'm actually going to get the answer. Okay, you have to copy the original equation down on these problems, and you have to show the work. If you don't cross something out in each step, you can pretty much be assured you're not showing your work correctly. Okay, so that's the basic idea. All right, so again, show all work, even including copying the original equation. This is not negotiable. If you want full credit, you have to start with the original equation and then show what it is that you're doing to both sides. So let's go ahead and practice some of these. Suppose we have 4x equals 84. Let's go ahead and put a couple of these up. 91 equals 7y, and 12w equals 108. Okay. I'd like you to pause the video very quickly, and I'd like you to go through these and practice solving them quickly. Okay? Be right back with you. When you've done all three, you can go ahead and resume the recording. All right, you should have paused me, and you should have gone through and done each of these three problems, either on scrapwork or on notes. And I think you'll notice right away that all three of these problems are all multiplication problems. They're all a variable times a number. Okay, so in each of these, the opposite is going to require us to divide. So we're going to show this each time by changing each side of the equation into a fraction. So put a divide line on both sides. And on the first one, we're going to divide by 4 on the left so that the 4's cancel out. So I have to divide by 4 on the right, which leaves me with x is equal to 21. And sure enough, 21 times 4 does equal 84. Check. The next one, look over on the right, the y is with a 7, so to undo times 7, divide by 7, do it on both sides, and you can leave the y on the right. There's no reason to always have to have the variable on the left, and 7 goes into 91. You probably don't know that off the top of your head, so 7 goes into 9 once, okay, with a remainder of 2, and 7 goes into 21 3 times for exactly 21, and there is our solution. And you can put a circle or a box around the answers, and again, 7 times 13 does equal 91, so we're on the right track. That one checks. And finally, the last one, we have 12 times w equals 108. So divide this side by 12. Well, if you do it to the left, you also have to do it to the right. It's very easy, by the way, to focus on just the number part, but the whole reason you're dividing by 12 is you want this to cancel out and give you just w. All right, and 12 goes into 108 exactly 9 times, and if we put that back in, 9 times 12 does equal 108. So those are the solutions to those first 3 problems. And again, these were all multiplication problems, so we solve these by dividing. Okay. Now, we can make them a little bit more complicated. Sometimes we're going to have negative numbers involved. We're going to do the same thing, but we're going to have to be careful about our integer arithmetic from the last chapter. So again, let's take a look at a couple problems. I'll write down 3 right here. All right. And again, pause me and take just a second and figure out the solutions to each of these. Go ahead and jot these numbers down. You can't just do them in your head. The whole point of this is to practice showing your work. So copy these 3 equations down, pause the video, and when you've solved each of the 3, press resume, and we'll see if we get the same answers. All right. So this time we have to be a little bit more careful because we have to not only get rid of the numbers, but we have to make sure we get rid of the negative signs too if they're with the variable. So the first one has negative 3 times b. And what I'm going to do to get rid of this is I'm going to divide by a negative 3. That takes care of the negative on the left side, and it takes care of the number. And again, balance indicates that I have to divide the other side by negative 3 too. On the left, both the negatives and the 3 cancel out, leaving me just b. And on the right, positive 24 divided by negative 3 should give you negative 8. And sure enough, when I check that, negative 3 times negative 8 does equal a positive 24. Okay, the next one, you should have divided both sides by negative 8. Again, the 8 and the negative cancel out, leaving you just n. And on the right side, you're going to get a negative answer because, again, you have a positive divided by negative. Okay? And in this case, 8 goes into 96. Well, it goes into 9 once with a remainder 1, and it goes into 16 2 more times, so you get negative 12. And sure enough, negative 12 times negative 8 will equal a positive 96. In the final one, to get d by itself, we have to get rid of the times negative 4. So let's divide by negative 4 on both sides. Again, the 4's cancel out. Again, the negatives cancel out. And you get d equals, now this time, the right side also has 2 negatives, so they're going to cancel out. And so you basically just get 56 divided by 4. Okay? And you can do this by long division, or a good way to divide things by 4 is just take half of them. Half of 56 is 28, and half of that is 14. Whichever way you decide to do it is fine. If you want to come down and actually show a little side problem and do the long division, that is an excellent idea as well. And you can see very quickly that you get 56 divided by 4 is in fact 14. And it's a positive 14 again because it was a negative divided by a negative. All right, so all 6 of those problems, though, were all multiplication problems that we solved by dividing. So let's flip things around. Suppose that we have a division problem. Now we're going to solve by multiplying. So let's take a look at a couple of these, and we'll just do 2 quick because it's basically the same idea. And the way we're going to show our work is we're going to write parentheses around both sides. So these will take a little bit more room. So suppose we have the problems r divided by negative 5 equals 10, and s divided by 6 equals 54. Again, one last time, go ahead and pause me and do these 2 problems, showing all of your work, and then resume the recording to make sure you get the right answer. All right, so the way we show our work on these is we put parentheses around both sides. Okay, so this first one, you have r divided by negative 5. To get rid of that, we're going to multiply by negative 5. If I do that to the left, I've also got to do it to the right. Okay, and so you don't have to mess around with asterisks or dots. I like to use parentheses. Especially when I'm solving division equations. Watch how nice this works. The negative 5 that you divided r by and the one you just multiplied by cancel out, leaving me just r. And 10 times negative 5 is negative 50. That's all there is to it. Okay. On the right side, let's switch colors just so we don't get too... Actually, let's go ahead and move this over just a teensy bit. Okay. And let's switch colors to yellow. When we solve this one, what we're going to do is we're going to again draw the parentheses on both sides. Since we have s divided by 6, to undo that, we're going to multiply by a positive 6 on both sides. Okay, on the left, it cancels out nice and easy. You get s. On the right, it's going to be a little bit more work. If we do cherry bomb, 6 times 4 is 24, carry the 2, and 6 times 5 is 30, plus 2 is 324. And sure enough, if I take 324 and carefully divide it by 6, we will see that the quotient comes out to be 54. All right? So that's how we solve one-step equations using multiplication and division. Keep in mind through all of this to always remember the idea of opposites and the idea of balance. And keep in mind that really, when we look at the bigger scheme of things, opposites is going to be really step 2, and balance is going to be step 3. Okay, what we're going to add when we get more complicated equations is we're also going to add the idea of SAD-MEP. Okay, and so what SAD-MEP is, if you look at it closely, all it is PEMDAS spelled backwards. Okay, and so SAD-MEP is the order that we're going to break things down. So if we have more complicated equations that have lots of things that need to be done, this is going to tell us the order. And before we even do that, there's also going to be a step 0, and step 0 is basically just to simplify. Okay, often we have to do some distributive property or get some variables on the same side. We might need to combine some like terms. And so as we go through this chapter, we're going to get better at solving equations. And we'll touch a little bit more on these top 2 steps. But for right now, all you need to concern yourself for all of the problems from both tonight 2.6 and also last night 2.5 is the idea of opposites and balance and showing all our work. All right, so we're going to stop the video right there. So see you tomorrow, and we'll do our daily quiz, and we'll dive right into problems in class tomorrow. All right, take care, everybody. See you in class.